August 12, 1985. A day in aviation history that can never be forgotten. But sadly, for all the wrong reasons. Imagine you're on a flight, just an hour into your journey. But that journey turns into a disaster that shakes the entire world. What happened to Japan Airlines Flight 123? And how did a routine flight become the deadliest single aircraft disaster in history? That evening, Japan Airlines Flight 123 took off from Tokyo's Haneda Airport, bound for Osaka. The Boeing 747 SR, a marvel of engineering in its time, was piloted by Captain Masami Takahama, with over 12,400 flight hours of experience. Alongside him was First Officer, co-pilot, Yutaka Sasaki, with approximately 3,963 flight hours of experience. Along with them were 13 crew members and 509 passengers. Total people on board, 524. These 524 people from all walks of life were on board, unaware that they were heading toward an end no one could have imagined. Within minutes, a devastating mechanical failure changed everything, challenging the limits of human courage and engineering. This is the story of bravery, heart-wrenching moments, and the questions that still remain unanswered. Questions about a tragedy that could have been prevented. So fasten your seatbelts, because we're about to unravel the mystery of Flight 123 and understand the events that led to this catastrophic accident. Imagine you're on a plane, flying at an altitude of 24,000 feet in the sky. Everything around you seems fine. People are relaxed, and the cabin crew is serving refreshments. But suddenly, there's a loud explosion, and everything changes. Now, here's the thing to understand. When a plane is that high up, the air is very thin. Thin air means less oxygen. If we were to go up that high without any protection, breathing would become difficult, and we could pass out. That's why the air inside planes is pressurized. It's set up to mimic the pressure at ground level, so passengers and crew can breathe comfortably. So, what happened suddenly? Japan Airlines Flight 123 faced a critical problem when a vital part of the plane, called the rear bulkhead, broke. The rear bulkhead acts as a barrier that keeps the air inside the cabin pressurized. But when this barrier broke, the pressurized air inside the plane started to leak out, so fast that it sounded like a loud scream. What was the result? The air inside the plane was no longer pressurized, and passengers and crew began to feel a lack of oxygen. This is why you've probably heard about oxygen masks on planes. These masks are there for emergencies, so if the cabin pressure fails, passengers can put on a mask and get oxygen. This was a technical problem that had occurred a long time ago. 7 years earlier, the same plane had been involved in an accident, which caused damage to its tail section. When the plane was repaired, a small mistake was made. One part was incorrectly repaired. This mistake went unnoticed for years, but on August 12, 1985, it came to light when the rear bulkhead broke, causing the cabin to depressurize. When the rear bulkhead broke, it wasn't just the air that leaked out, but another critical system in the plane, the hydraulics, also failed. Hydraulics is the system that controls the plane's control surfaces, meaning the system that moves the plane left, right, up, and down. When this failed, the pilots had no way to control the plane. Imagine driving a car, and suddenly the steering wheel stops working. This was the exact situation for the pilots when the control of the plane slipped from their hands. But controlling a plane is much harder than controlling a car. For the passengers, it became a nightmare. There were screams and the sound of rushing air everywhere. Oxygen masks automatically dropped in front of the passengers, but some were in shock and forgot to put them on. The cabin crew was helping the passengers, but the plane was shaking so much that their task became even more difficult. Think for a moment. If you were one of the passengers, what would you do in your final moments? Would you have the courage to write a goodbye note? Some passengers started writing goodbye notes to their loved ones. One little girl was writing to her father, "Daddy, I know you will miss me, but I will always remember you." The scene was so emotional that just thinking about it brings tears. In the cockpit, Captain Masami Takahama and his co-pilot Yutaka Sasaki were doing everything they could to control the plane. They tried to keep the plane stable using engine thrust, but without hydraulics, it was nearly impossible. They tried to get help from air traffic control, but the communication had become weak. The plane was tilting one way, then falling. Every second was a struggle, but the pilot's goal was somehow to get the plane to a safe landing point. For 32 minutes, the plane continued to struggle in the air. During this time, the passengers and crew faced some of the most difficult moments of their lives. The plane gradually approached Mount Takamagahara, a mountainous area. When the plane lost complete control, it collided with the mountain and crashed. The impact of the crash caused the plane to break apart, with pieces scattered everywhere. Flames and explosions destroyed everything in their path. It took the rescue teams a long time to reach the site, and when they finally arrived, they found only 4 survivors alive. Why did this happen? Japan Airlines Flight 123's tragedy was not just an accident. It was the result of technical faults and human errors. Failing to maintain cabin pressure, the incorrect repair, and the hydraulic failure all combined to create a disaster that became the deadliest single aircraft crash in aviation history. But there is still one question. If the repair had been done correctly, could this have been prevented? So, this was the story of Japan Airlines Flight 123. A tragedy caused by a technical mistake, but one that forever changed the aviation industry. This accident teaches us an important lesson. Even the smallest carelessness can lead to great loss. The 520 lives lost that day are not just numbers. They represent individual stories of their joys, their dreams, and their loved ones. But the question remains, have we learned from this? Are our technology and aviation safety standards strong enough today to prevent such accidents from happening again? In the end, this story is not just about a plane crash, it's a story of human courage, learning from mistakes, and keeping alive the memory of those who lost their lives. Their memory tells us that safety and responsibility can never be compromised.